Today's lesson is called the Zodiac Signs. All right, I'm going to get into some information about not just the zodiacs, but where a lot of, this knowledge comes from. Um, the root of it comes from the fallen angels. Okay, and I'm going to get into some information about that. In the description box, I will put the link of the Book of Enoch uh, section called the Watchers, uh, and you go to the first chapter, and you'll get into you can get into some of the information I'm about to get into. It's going to be the Book of Enoch, the Watchers, and I'll be reading the first section, chapters 6 and 7. It'll get into some information, but before I go there, I want to tackle the word itself, zodiac. Okay, the word zodiac comes from the Greek word kuakluas. Okay, kuakluas is the Greek term for zodiac. Okay, and it means to wallow or wallowing. All right, so when the fallen angels, came down from the heavens, their little the you notice when they show certain movies, they show like rocks. When Superman so-called came down from the heavens, and it was a rock that he was in, a so-called meteor. That's what they call them. But these are the vehicles, or the the elements that shields them from the force field, and they wallow to the ground. Okay. Zodiac is a lower level. When you follow it, it's a lower level type of witchcraft. Zodiac is true 80% of the time. Like, I'm so-called born in June. Okay, June, so-called, certain parts of it represents a Gemini. All right, we supposed to have two sides of things of that nature. It's true on a carnal level, but that's why in Romans 6 and 8, the Most High says, "For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace." So you don't supposed to follow your fleshly makeup because you're carnal minded. Some people base their relationships trying to find their so-called mate due to a zodiac or some type of horoscope. That's witchcraft. You're not supposed to follow witchcraft. You're supposed to follow the scriptures as it is written, and I'll show you in a few minutes. And I'm going to show you the weakness and the limitations of this so-called astrology. All right, let's go to Daniel chapter 5, verse 11. Now, I'm going to give you an overview of what happened in this chapter. Nebuchadnezzar, the son of Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, was given the kingdom of the Chaldeans. And the Most High came down. He showed Christ himself, because you got to understand that Christ is always the mediator. That the Most High always uses Christ. What he showed Belshazzar was a hand, and he wrote this these words down for him. So what happened is Belshazzar called for Daniel, and all the astrologers and all those people couldn't figure out what was said. Now see, even back in a few chapters, Nebuchadnezzar called for Daniel. He wasn't using, Daniel didn't use astrology and all that. He just uses straight power from the Most High, and that's how we're supposed to deal with it. See, what Satan wants you to do is deal with the zodiacs and be in awe on, oh, okay, that's the reason why you act this way. So you go and look at a person's zodiac and all that, finding out their fleshly carnal makeup. So you're not supposed to follow the carnal makeup. So most people deal with how they feel, their emotions, and their attitudes. We don't supposed to deal with all that. Okay. Now, like I said, I'm a so-called Gemini. We do talk a lot and all that. But the thing about it is, you use your persona per se to be righteous. All right. If you got a knife in your hand, you're supposed to use it to cut steak or cut a piece of fruit or something, not to slit someone's throat. So it depends on what you do with what you have. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm gonna read the first verse and then I'm gonna skip because, like I said, I'm gonna give you an overview. You can read the chapter on your own time. I'm gonna read the first verse. It says, Belshazzar, the king, made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords and drank wine before the thousands. Belshazzar, while he tested the wine, commanded to bring the golden and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple which was in Jerusalem, that the king and his princes, his wives, and his concubines might drink therein. Then they brought the golden vessels that they were taken out of the temple of the house of God, which was at Jerusalem, and the king and his princes, his wives, and his concubines drank in them. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold, pay attention, and of silver, of brass, of iron, of wood, and of stone. In the same hour came forth fingers of a man's hand. So this is what happened. The finger of the Most High came down through his son, because the Most High and his son was in the beginning, of course. Christ was in the beginning. And wrote over against the candlestick upon the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. And the king saw the part of the hand that wrote. Then the king's countenance was changed, and his thoughts troubled him, so that the joints of his loins were loosed, and his knees smote one against another. So he was shivering, like, like, what is going on here? And verse 7 says, the king cried aloud to bring in the astrologers, right? The Chaldeans and the soothsayers. And the king spake and said to the wise men of Babylon, whosoever shall read this writing and shall, and shall know me the interpretation thereof, shall be clothed with scarlet and have a chain of gold about his neck, and shall be the third ruler in the king. Then came in all the king's wise men, but they could not read the writing, nor make known to the king the interpretation thereof. Then was King Belshazzar greatly troubled, and his countenance was changed in him, and his lords were astonished. Now the queen, by reason of the word of the king and his lord, came into the banquet house, and the queen spake and said, O king, live forever. Let not thy thoughts trouble thee, nor let thy countenance be changed. All right. Now, I know I've read a little more than I said I was going to read, but I'm going to jump to verse 15. And it says, and now the wise men, the astrologers, have been brought in before me, that they should read this writing and make known unto me the interpretation thereof, but they could not show the interpretation of the thing. So what happens is when you read down, they called in Daniel, and Daniel interpreted the words that was written. And at the end of this, you will notice that he was killed. Belshazzar was killed because you notice, they're not following the Most High. They was dealing with all these, the gods of gold and all that. Of course, you're going to be killed. So it was just showing. I wanted to show you that you're limited with astrology, dealing with the Chaldeans. Chaldeans is nothing but magicians of Babylon. Excuse me. So what these people do nowadays, they push astrology in America and all the Western civilizations so you can fall prey of the weakness and the limitations of Satan. He's weak in certain way. He only had powers where you allow him to give him powers. That's the only time, and it's very very limited. A lot of people don't understand the power of God in Himself. Like, you can have direct power from the Most High. Okay, that's what Daniel was dealing with. That's what Joseph was dealing with. Moses, when he seen, Abraham, when they have certain visions, Joseph was able to interpret the dream for the Pharaoh. 7 years of plenty is 7 years of famine. The Hebrew people deal with straight power source from the Most High. Okay, and that's the reason why he was able to interpret. Okay, now let me get into some information real quick on the zodiac signs itself. It's so-called 12 zodiac signs. And before I go there, let's go to Genesis. Exodus chapter 3. Exodus chapter 3. Hold on, that's not it. Exodus chapter 20, excuse me. Exodus chapter 20. And I'm going to start at the first verse. And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. So he's telling us, the Hebrews, thou shalt not have no other gods before us. We would go into other nations, other civilizations, and try to teach the other nations, we're not going to follow. We were always an example. We're not going to follow your gods. We would take death for it. Daniel was thrown in the lion's den because he didn't want to follow the gods, okay, of Babylon. So this is what we need to realize too. Verse 4 says, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven images. So you shouldn't even make certain animals. You shouldn't certain animals and stuff you shouldn't draw. And I'm going to show you why. Because when you draw these animals and you got them up as a picture in your house, you don't know if these animals or these beings that you're drawing have been worshipped, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the waters under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them or serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. Okay, now I wanted to show you where it says make, because let's say you draw a person, you sketch them, you frame it, you put it on the wall somewhere. 10 years from now, 20 years, 1,000 years from now, that drawing is dig in in archaeology, they dig it up. Anthropologists, they see it, and they put a story to it. God, this, that, and now this person that you drew was just could have just been your mom or something, and you got it up there sitting there, and people got it framed in a nice gold case because it came from another generation and people worshiping it. That's why the Most High said, thou shalt not make unto thee any engraven images of the heaven above, or the earth, or under the earth. And I'll show you what I mean. Some people may balk on that, but it's better to be safe than sorry. I don't deal with a bunch of drawings of people, and I don't have a bunch of people pictures all over my place. Aries, the ram. Remember, we're dealing with astrology. Astrology, the Most High don't deal with astrology. Okay, these are the so-called 12 signs of the constellation. Aries, the ram. Taurus, or Taurus, the bull. Gemini. That's supposed to be me, right? The twins. And the twins is Castor and Pollux. Cancer, the crab. Leo, the lion. Virgo, the maiden. Shall us ears of corn. So that links to ears of corn, dealing with give me a minute, dealing with the goddess of grain and compassion. That's what you're dealing with. Okay. Libra, the scales. Scales of a fish. Scorpio, the scorpion. Now you see why the Most High don't want you to make these images. Sagittarius, the archer. Capricorn, the sea of the goats, or Capricornius in certain other dialects of the Greek. Aquarius, the water bearer. Okay. The fishes of Pisces. You see that? Now when you read Exodus 3, it says, thou shalt not make unto thee any engraven images. And see what people are not paying attention to, what it says, and when it says, verse 4, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven images or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above. So you don't supposed to be making an angel. You see what I'm saying? You don't supposed, or you don't supposed to even make a lightning strike, clouds and all. You don't supposed to deal with nothing of the heavens above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the waters under the earth. Because see, what happens is people will see these objects and then they start worshiping. People are weak. People are weak. So, not to say that to insult them, but a lot of people just fall after something that shines. Everything that shines, somebody want to worship. Gold and silver and all that, it make their eyes twinkle, and let's bow down to this here. See, that's what happens. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them or serve them, for I the Lord. And what people will say is, well, long as you don't bow down to. But you may not bow down to it, but somebody else may see this beautiful painting of a tree, and that's the tree of Melvin. Bow, because he drew it and he carved his name at the bottom. I'm telling you, that's how people are off like that. And the golden calf and all those things, how people follow through. They try to, the golden calf represent Baal or Yahweh, because that's the spirit of what they're following is Satan. You're not supposed to do it. You're going against the grain. You're going against the Bible. If you do it, it's a form of idolatry. Okay? And it links to all these signs and things people follow. And, I just wanted to tackle that. Let me show you some more information. Let's go to the book of book 1, which is labeled Watchers. And I'm going to read chapter 6, which links to Genesis 6. And it states, and it came to pass when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels of the children of heaven saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, come, let us choose us wives from among the children of them, and begat us children. And Samjaza, which is another name for Satan, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to this deed, and alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. And they all answered him and said, let us all swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual precautions. So they all came together, and you got to understand the spirit behind that. What did they do in Psalms 83? They all came together. See, the same spirit is going around in the earth, but it's just it's a demonic spirit, and a lot of people are being exposed following Satan's plan. Verse 5. not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then swear they all together and bound themselves by mutual imprecation upon it, and they were in all 200 who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon. So when it talks about Mount Hermon, when you look at Paramount movies, when you see the falling angels going over, like when you look at a Paramount movie, when you first watch it, the introduction of a movie, you'll see the angels coming from heaven, then they go over the mountain, which represents Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon represents Satan himself. Okay, that's why all the images there are 23. You got 22 stars, which is angels that fell. It's not actually 22. If they just show, and 23 represents 666. If you divide, let me get it right. Let me show you. Give me a minute. If you divide, let me show this, my flip phone here. If you divide 2 divided by 3, I don't know if it's showing up. It's probably not. Or I think it did for a minute. 666. Okay. Boom. 2 divided by 3 is 666. Represents Satan. All right. That's why they showing it. Do it through images, through movies. Like I say, I can break down a movie easy because that's just my way I can show people that nothing is new under the sun. Okay. Let me get back to this. Where it says, come let us, verse 6, by mutual precautions upon it, and they were in all 200 who descended in the days of Jared of the summit of Mount Hermon, and they called it Mount Hermon because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And these are the names of the leaders: Semlaza, their leader; Arkaba, Ramiel, Kabiel, Temlael, Ramliel, Daniel. It's not Daniel. Make that sure. Make people know that is Daniel or Daniel. Ezquiel, Barkiel, Azazel, Amaras, almost sound like America, Batariel, and Aniel, Zaquiel, Samspiel, Satariel, Turiel, Janjariel, Seriel. These are their chiefs of tens. Okay. Chapter 7, verse 1. And all the others together with them took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one. And they began to go in unto them and to defile themselves with them, and they taught them charms and enchantments. You see that? That's why you're supposed to deal with astrology. The angels, the falling angels taught us that. The chiefs. And what the chiefs did, had kids, and these kids, the Nephilim and the Amalek and all them, through Esau, is teaching us today. All right? Let me read that again. And all the others together with them took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one. And they began to go in unto them to defile themselves with them, and they taught them charms and enchantments and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants, see, whose height was 3,000 ells, who consumed. That's where they get the movie. I'm at verse 4 because I remember. That's where they get the movie When the Earth Stood Still, and you see that big black tall image of a man with red eyes about to beam down and all that, because they get all that, like Gulliver's Travels and all that, the beanstalk and all that. Yeah, they're just mimicking what happened years ago. All right, verse 4. All the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind, and they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles. That's what you get, birds and beasts. Your Tyrannosaurus Rex and all that, that's mixed with a lizard and an eagle or something, and they just get real huge. They've been doing so-called deoxyribonucleic acid or DNA, mixing DNA for years, thousands of years. This is not new. It's just the children of these falling angels are doing it today. They've been doing it. You've seen one video on YouTube. One guy had a mouse with an ear, or a human ear on the back of it. Actually, technology and wisdom, this evil technology or whatever, has regressed. They even have ancient relics, and archaeologists have found art carvings of helicopters in Egypt. Let's go to verse 5. Then them and devoured mankind, and they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones. Chapter 8, verse 1. And Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates. That's where all your weapons and stuff come from. Now people were like, well, why would the Most High allow all this? We in the chaotic world that's mixed. So it needs to happen to bring forth Christ in the new heaven and in the new earth. Okay? Breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of working them, and the bracelets and ornaments, and the use of the autonomy. Excuse me, these letters are real small on this site. And the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kind of costly stones and all. So that's where your makeup and all that come from. A lot of women don't understand where the makeup come from, why they want to wear makeup. I'm gonna tell you, I don't even really want to tackle that spirit, really. And I mean, I'm touching on it now, but one day I'll make a lesson on it. You're following the dead. A lot of people don't know that makeup was just made for dead people. That you put makeup on a corpse. You don't put it on a live face. That's why your face break out. Okay, you don't need that stuff. What happens is the makeup attaches to the skin, and your skin gets addicted to the actual chemicals, like a drug, and it absorbs in your pores, and now it makes your skin sags, and it causes if you do have so-called rings around your eyes or whatever, it'll just make it worse, because this part of the woman's eyes are very sensitive because of the iron, the low iron in women. They have to keep their iron up, so it makes all they do is just going to make it worse. But I don't attack, because I don't feel like getting a bunch of you talking about the makeup and all that, yeah. Because let me tell you, man, a bunch of yappy women is irritating me. So I don't even really deal with getting into it, because I know what they're following. I know that they're following Lucifer when they deal with all that makeup and arching their brows way up here. I'm talking about it's okay to shape them to the outline of your bone if you got brows that's connected and all that. There's nothing wrong with that. But you got women that they look surprised the whole time you talking to them, like, well, I didn't say anything that was surprising. And, it looking like the McDonald golden arches up here way up here. Painting it, they cut their eyebrow off and then paint it with the brush. And you tell your kids, don't mark on yourself, and don't know you kid marking yourself because your mom is doing it in the room. So you're just going to follow what your mom do. Okay, that's what the kids do. Kids are impressionable. They're going to do what they see someone else do. That's what they're supposed to do. So if you can't teach your kid not to go and take your makeup, they want to be like mommy and putting the makeup on, you get mad and slap them all around. But yet you tell your kid, don't color yourself and all that and putting makeup, but you're doing it. Nah. But like I said, I guess I said a mouthful, but let me go back to this. Now it says, I'm going to read verse 1 again. And Ezekiel, chapter 8, Book of Enoch, chapter 8, verse 1. And these angels taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and made known to them metals of the earth and the art of working them, and breastplates and ornaments, and the use of autonomy, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. And there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray and became corrupt in all their ways. Sanjala taught enchantments and root cuttings. Amaros, the resolving of enchantments. Bargiel taught astrology. You see that? That's why you're not supposed to deal with that. The angels taught us that. Then it says Kababiel, the constellations. Ezekiel, not Ezekiel, but Ezekiel, the knowledge of the clouds, which is your weather forecast, is going up there, knowing, predicting the weather, forecasting what God. Hold up, who taught you that? How you learn that? You see what I'm saying? It is what it is. It's right here in the Bible. Aquiel, the signs of the earth. You see that? Knowing when there's going to be an earthquake, all the technology, when you see these gadgets. And this is the thing, right? Let me finish reading and I'll say something. It says Shamsiel, the signs of the sun, and Seriel, the course of the moon. And then, see, it did say, it says signs of the sun. It didn't say, and see, some people say, well, Enoch knew about the sun, but we follow the laws, the holy days and the Sabbath based on just the direction of the sun, not the signs of it. But this is what, if you follow the moon, you're following the Kabbalists, or the so-called Jewish people that deal with the Talmud. Okay? That's why it says Seriel, the course of the moon. See, we were following the course of the moon at first. Okay? And as men perished, they cried, and their cry went up to heaven. All right? So I just wanted to read that. Hopefully, I don't know, let me get in the frame real quick. Wow, 32 minutes. It's crazy. Yeah. Technology. People use technology, but we don't know where it comes from. Like you ask a person, like I'm so-called making this video here, right? How does this camera knows to put my image in this frame? We know how to work the technology. They taught us how to work those breastplates and the swords and all that, but we don't know how they came up with the knowledge of how to make it. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'll just bring, you know what? I'm not going to be talking about the camera. I want someone to show me, or just make a comment on this video. How do you make a CD player? Or how, matter of fact, forget the CD player. Let's go way back. How do you make a record? You got lines, almost like a vortex. It goes big and goes small. How do you make this? Okay. The Art of War. I have this movie. I'm just showing this as an example here. I can watch this movie based on what's on this side. How do you do that? A pager. You don't see the numbers coming into the plastic device called a pager, but you press a little button and you, oh wow, who taught us? We don't know how to do it. This book is telling you, Enoch is telling you where it comes from. It's angel technology. And the kids of the angels, Amalek, the highest seed, the Rothschilds and the Club of Rome, and the ones that's over everything, they got all the money and everything. They don't even need money. The Dukes of Rome, the Roman Catholics, and all these people, they're the ones that's over everything. Think about it. You didn't make it. We just know how to use it. People want to get the latest phones and all that. They can't even figure this out. You can't figure this technology out. Come on. So that's why I don't deal with astrology. I know I went into some other topics, You know, but hey, there you have it. Hopefully you all got something out of this. I'll be making more videos, of course. And I thank you all for making comments. I'm not going to be able to get to all the comments. Hopefully I can get to some. This page is growing, and I thank the Most High for that. Uh, and I appreciate all the positive comments and the negative comments. Love you all. This is my life, and I'll be doing this for the rest of it. Shalom.